Hi, fourth graders. Today we are going to start our very last theme in our fourth grade reading books. That means that we are getting awfully close to the end of the school year, which is kind of sad and exciting to think about at the same time. I like the end of the school year because I love summer and I love being home with my kids, but I also get kind of sad when I think about not having to talk to you guys and see you guys and do things with you guys anymore. So we're getting real close to finishing out our school year, and we are starting theme 6, which is called Nature, Friend, and Foe. So we're on page, if you can see at the bottom here, 626 and 627 in your hardcover reading book. And so we're going to read about nature, 3 different nature stories, plus 2 short stories to finish out our theme like we usually have during our review week. And those stories that we are going to read, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, all have to do with nature, either being your friend or your foe. And so if you think about what a friend is, you guys all have friends. You know what friends are. They're people that you have things in common with, that you like to be around and talk to and do things with. So having a friend is a good thing. But the word foe means kind of the opposite of friends. So a foe is your enemy. So somebody who you probably wouldn't enjoy being around. Somebody, maybe they're not very nice to you or they don't care about you. So a foe is kind of like your enemy. And so if you think about nature can be both our friend and our foe, right? When we have those beautiful, sunny, calm days, nature is our friend. We love to be outside. We love to be in the sun. But then we have tornadoes and we have blizzards and we have hurricanes and we have all these times when nature is actually very dangerous and can be actually deadly. And during those times, then we would say nature is our foe. And so we're going to read some stories in our theme, and we're going to have to decide whether in each story, nature, is it our friend or is it our foe? So let's turn the page and take a look at some of the stories that we're going to read. So we have a letter from a man named Seymour Simon. Seymour Simon is a very popular author of nonfiction books. So if you've read a nonfiction book in your life, chances are it was probably written by Seymour Simon. And Seymour Simon is the author of the book Wildfires that we are going to be reading in a couple weeks here, and that's in our theme. And so he wrote that story, or that nonfiction book about wildfires, and he's written you guys are the readers, he's written you a letter to start our theme, just like we've had with all of our other themes this year. So it says, "Dear reader, I was born in the Bronx, a part of New York City. It may seem odd to you that an author of books about natural things such as wildfires, icebergs, volcanoes, big cats, wolves, gorillas, and planets, and outer space grew up in a large city. But even though I lived in an apartment house surrounded by other apartment houses, I found nature all around me. On my street, there was a vacant lot. Wild grasses, weeds, and small trees grew in the lot. Insects buzzed, spiders made webs, and earthworms wiggled in the soil. Birds flew in to look for bugs or seeds to eat. Feral cats, we called them alley cats, roamed and raised litters of kittens in the city jungle of the lot. Wildflowers appeared in the summer and snowdrifts piled up in the winter. The vacant lot was my own little corner of the natural world. I've been a nature explorer all my life. At first, I explored what I found near my home. Not far from me were an ocean beach in the wonderful Bronx Zoo, where I saw lions, tigers, elephants, and gorillas. When I grew up, I traveled to many places and continued to explore the natural world. I've been scared and shaken by earthquakes in California and Mexico, watched erupting volcanoes in Hawaii, icebergs and glaciers in Alaska, and wildfires in the forests of the western states. I've walked in rainforests and deserts, along ocean shores and mountain trails, and listened to the sounds of wolves and the thunder of a lightning storm. Nature has many moods and is always changing. Nature can be as calm as the sky on a sunny day or as dangerous as the winds of a hurricane or the snows of a blizzard. Nature is not just good or bad, nor only friend or foe. Nature is all of these things. Nature is always with us and around us and in us. We are truly a part of nature. Sincerely, Seymour Simon." So let's look at the next page and look at the stories that we're going to be reading in this theme. So as a child, Seymour Simon explored nature in a vacant lot near his home. What are some discoveries you have made about nature in your own neighborhood? Simon also writes that nature has many moods. What moods have you observed in nature? Look at the covers shown below. What do you think you will learn about nature from each selection? As you read each one, think about whether it describes nature as a friend, a foe, both, or maybe even neither. From the wilds of Alaska to the shores of Maine, get ready to experience the many faces of nature. And so when we read in our theme, we are going to be reading Salmon Summer, which we're reading this week. We are going to read Wildfires, Skylark, and then at the very end of our theme, we are going to be reading 2 short stories, Lost on a Mountain in Maine and The Volcano Disaster. And so that'll kind of wrap up our school year in a few weeks in May. So let's take a look at our story for the week, Salmon Summer. So here I am on page 632 and 633. This is our story preview page that we always look at before we read our stories. And so over here in the corner, we have some vocabulary words. Okay, we have the word, my pen isn't working here. We have abundance, ancestors, lures, scavengers, and spawn. And so as I read the story preview page right now, I want you to see where those words are highlighted in the text and see if you can use context clues to help you figure out what each one of those words mean, because there will be a vocabulary page with those words in our packet for today. So, the land and people of Kodiak Island. Kodiak Island is part of Alaska. You might expect the weather to be cold there, but Kodiak Island's climate is mild enough for farming. An abundance of fish provides food for the human and animal populations. One of the busiest seasons on Kodiak Island is summer, when the salmon return to the island streams to spawn or lay their eggs. Salmon are important to life on Kodiak Island. The native people, called Aleuts or Aleutic, have lived on Kodiak Island for hundreds of years. Aleuts today fish for salmon as their ancestors did before them, using nets and lures. Animals such as the Kodiak bear and the fox also eat the salmon. Even scavengers such as seagulls take part in the feast. Learn more about life on Kodiak Island as you read about an Aleut boy's activities in Salmon Summer. And then we have this little box over here that tells us where Kodiak Island is. So Kodiak Island is the second largest island in the United States after the island of Hawaii. It is 100 miles long and 60 miles wide. And so Kodiak Island, if we zoom in here, is this island right off the coast of the main island in Alaska. So it is part of Alaska and it is part of the United States. So let's get started. Well, let's look at our vocab and then get started reading our story. So here are those words we just talked about: abundance, lure, scavengers, spawn, and ancestors. And so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about each one and draw a line from the word to its definition. So abundance means a supply that is more than enough. So if you have more than enough of something, you have an abundance. A lure is fake bait that is used to attract fish. So if you've ever been fishing, chances are you've used a lure. Scavengers are animals that feed on dead animals. So if you've ever seen those big, vultures or big birds that eat the dead animals on the side of the road, those are scavengers. Then we have spawn. So when fish spawn, they lay eggs and reproduce to make more fish. And ancestors are people in one's family that lived years ago. So those are our vocab words for the week and their definitions. So let's see how they fit into our story. So Salmon Summer starts on page 635. Summer, Matvey Fish Camp, Mosier Bay, Kodiak Island, Alaska. Alex loves to snack on tamak, chewy dry fish. The tamak comes from halibut, his favorite fish to catch. But now that the salmon are running, Alex is going fishing for salmon. He's been waiting for them to return. As young fry, they left the nearby stream to live at sea. To complete their life cycle, they're coming back to the same stream to spawn. This summer, 9-year-old Alex is finally old enough to help his father set the gill net. Like their Aleut ancestors, they catch fish needed for to feed their family. By the next morning, the net is full of flapping fish. They are trapped in the almost invisible mesh of the net as they try to swim past Alex's beach. Alex and his father pull their net. It's time to pick fish. Alex wears gloves to protect his hands, not only from the fine mesh of the nets, but also from the strings of jellyfish. It's not as much fun as fishing with a line, but there will be time for that later. Now they must finish landing today's catch. Back on the beach, Alex's father asks him if he can tell what kind of salmon they caught. First, Alex picks out a humpy, the pink salmon that are running in the greatest numbers. Below that, he lays a red salmon, the best kind for eating. Then he lays down a silver salmon, and finally at the bottom, a big dog salmon. Alex cleans the salmon alongside his father as seagulls watch from afar. He uses the same knife his grandmother's uncle used to skin bears. He cuts fillets from one of the fish for dinner. With the others, he cuts off the head, pulls out the guts, and leaves the skin and tails on. They're for the smokehouse. But as the cleaned fish hang outside, uninvited visitors fly in to steal a meal. Magpies sneak in for a bite when nobody's watching. They're not the only hungry birds. Alex leaves salmon scraps to wash away with the tide and be eaten by scavengers. The gulls swoop down for a fish feast. As always, they eat their favorite part of the salmon first, the eyes. At dusk, another animal arrives to take home more of Alex's scraps. A fox slinks by to pick up a meal. She takes it back to her pups in their den near Alex's cabin. Farther up the bay at Dog Salmon Creek, a Kodiak bear grabs a king salmon to feed her 2 cubs. Later, when Alex goes by, the bears are gone, but he knows they were here. He follows claw tracks in the sand and discovers the remains of their meal. There's an abundance of salmon for all. There's salmon for the eagles to catch. There's more salmon for Alex to catch and give to the people in town who are too old to fish. There's also salmon for the family smokehouse. The fish Alex and his father cleaned are smoked. Alex hangs the smoked red salmon outside in the sun to cure. The fish drip dry, which removes the excess oil. Soon the smoked salmon is ready to eat. Alex's little brother Larry tears off a bite as he watches Alex clean more fish. When Alex discards some salmon eggs, it reminds him that there are ripe salmon berries behind camp and he's hungry. Alex picks berries for jam but eats most of what he picks. Then he and his father head out to the family's crab traps. He brings along a few small salmon for bait. Alex hauls in the family's shallow water trap for some Dungeness crabs but finds nothing. He slices open some salmon and baits the trap again. In deeper water, he helps his father haul their trap for Alaskan king crabs. He finds one inside, but the prickly crab is too small to keep. Overboard it goes. After Alex rebaits the trap, he helps push it over the side and watches until it sinks out of sight. Then he heads up the bay to Dog Salmon Creek. It's time to play. It's time to fish for fun. The creek is full of salmon. The fish are heading upstream to mate, to lay and fertilize their eggs on the gravelly bottom. Alex ties a silver lure with 3 hooks on it to his line. There are so many fish that he often hooks one in its body. Alex catches fish after fish, but he doesn't keep them. Every time he catches one, he releases it. He knows the biggest fish yet is to come, and it won't be a salmon. The last salmon Alex catches is a male humpy. He can tell this one's a male because it's changing. Its jaws are becoming hooked. Its back is growing a hump. Its life cycle is almost complete. All the salmon will soon die upstream after expending their last energy to mate and cover their eggs with gravel. The floating bodies will become easy meals for the wildlife. But not this salmon. This one will be Alex's bait for the biggest fish of all, a halibut. It's time to head out in the boat and go hooking. It's time to give fish for tamak. Alex baits a hook with his salmon, attaches a heavy sinker, and hangs the line overboard. It drops to the bottom. He waits and feels with his fingers for a tug on the line. He feels a nibble and pulls. Nothing. He feels another nibble and tugs hard. He's got it. The hook is set. Alex holds on and starts pulling it in. With help from his father, Alex pulls the halibut aboard. It's almost as big as Alex, and it's not even a very big one. Back at camp, Alex's grandmother slices the halibut flesh into strips and hangs them up to dry. Alex can hardly wait. It takes about 10 days. Finally, the dry fish, his favorite snack, is ready. It's the same kind of snack his ancestors ate, tamak. And that is the end of our story today. So hopefully you got a little bit more information of what it is like to live on the island of Kodiak and to fish and hunt for your food. and some of the things that those citizens or the residents of Kodiak Island do to keep their family traditions alive. So I hope you enjoyed our story today, and we are going to go take a look at our packet for Tuesday.